Inquisitive, aren't you? There was a little surge of longboats that appeared on the market a few years ago. So things like the Liquid Logic Stinger, the Piranha 12er, the Dagger Green, and people were buying them to sort of fill the fleet, if you like. And I wanted one for ages. I settled on the Scorch X, 10 foot long. I borrowed it for a little bit beforehand and ended up using it as my main boat because it paddled like a 9-foot creek boat. There's only 1 foot difference. So the thing with this video, I'm going to question if you were adding a longboat to the fleet, if you needed to spend the money on brand new, or if you could buy something of a certain vintage, a little bit older, and get away with that. And it's filmed before a live audience. Check them out. Look at that. So could you paddle something like the Scorch X that I'm in at the minute? Or would it be something like, oh, I don't know, a Dagger Freefall LT, for example? The other option would be to find yourself something a bit more old school, like this, like the Freefall LT. So it's, again, close to that 10-foot length. It's definitely narrower. That's been the first feel, so it feels quite wobbly. But just to paddle over, I felt the speed behind it. I'm really pleased to be in one of these. I remember seeing these when I was about 11, and I was told that they were too advanced for me. The thing that I really like about it is that cross handle at the front. Look at that. It's quick, I'll give it that much. I am surprised by the first feel, it's just how responsive it is, given that it doesn't have that flat bottom. It's a bit more rounded. This thing actually wants to pick up and move around. My question is, when it starts to pick up, will I resort to things that you might consider old school, like a low support entry and exit, because of its narrowness, like having to do a bit more steering, because of the fact that it's locked into the water a bit more. It hasn't got that flat bottom. We'll find out. Yeah? Here's the question: boofability. So the lack of rocker is definitely going to make it punch through things a bit more rather than go up and over. Right, this might be exciting. Oh, Jesus. Okay. I can see why these were popular. Can't see why I was told I wasn't allowed one though. The thing I'm questioning is whether it will change my style of paddling, because it is a boat that isn't rockered, it's narrow, and it doesn't have that planing hull. So far, I haven't changed anything, but we'll see. What a boat. Ah, this might be the difference. The big round bottom to it wants to stick a little bit more. Feels like a flat bottom might do that side slip a bit better. Not impossible, but the flat bottom might do that side slip better, meaning flat spins might be a bit easier. There we go, still do it. Nice. looping up to the top, even though it's shorter than the Scorch X, what I am finding is, because it's narrow, because it's long, and because it's low, its whole speed's really good. What I am feeling, because of its low deck and lack of backrest, I'm straight legged and sat upright, which means that after a while I'll probably find this boat quite uncomfortable. For the time being though, I'm quite enjoying it. Carries its momentum, very responsive for what it is. This could be an option to add to the fleet. You never know. Tell you what, one thing you will notice with an older style of boat that doesn't have all the fittings in, it feels like it's about a third of the weight. This thing's really light. I could get used to this. Right, wet ride or dry ride, what do you reckon? I reckon I'm going to pencil into the water. Hopefully I don't hit the bottom. Yeah, wet ride. Of a creek boat. Already feeling quite responsive. See if we can hit some moves and surf its tail in this thing. I reckon we can. Right. River right eddy. Nice. River right eddy. Okay, first time I've had to change my paddling style. Correcting them, but not massive. Through the gap. Oh, it's a lot of fun. So just having a paddle up to the top of the serpent's tail and actually having a lap of it already, I've established that I haven't changed my paddling style. I can still drive this round as I would do any other creek boat. What I have found is that it wants to go through rather than over, but we kind of knew that was going to happen with its shape anyway. The thing that does concern me with this boat is its safety features, or now lack of. So those cross handles that are a bit of sling screwed into the boat, garden hose, they might pull out of the boat if this thing were to get stuck. The cockpit is really, really small, so if it does get stuck or I go over, it means getting out of the boat might be quite tricky. So on the flat float out, I was thinking, what could my other options be for a long boat? Because this isn't the longest, if I'm honest. So I could have a Liquid Logic Stinger, a Dagger Green, they were quite cool, Piranha 12er, Piranha Scorch X, which I'm paddling today as well, Preon Invader. God, the list goes on. Actually, the list goes on and on. So if it was something you were thinking about, they're all viable options, and I can still paddle this, like I said more than once, in the same way that I would paddle my normal creek boat. Try to get that flat landing. So far this thing has gone through rather than over. Oh, there we go. I do like it, apart from the, you know, tiny cockpit. So I've already done a lap in the boat that I wanted when I was about 11, and it felt really responsive actually. Didn't feel as old school as I thought it was going to. And now I'm in new shape, Scorch X, really rockered. It definitely now feels deeper, and it feels like the front of the boat wants to go over things rather than ploughing through like old school boat. Let's give it a lap, let's see. So the first one we had earlier was how easy was it to get the nose up with our flatter boat earlier. Significantly easier. with the amount of rocker. And it feels like my riverboat. Nose of the boat up and over again. And because it's new shape, I'm quite a bit happier to start putting loads of edge in because of its width, because of its depth. Go for a little drop into this stopper again as we did in the old school boat. See the front of the boat sitting nice and high, meaning I'm having to do a whole load less to control, meaning that I could, I'll do it in a minute, blast out the corner of this fixture using the boat shape. So if I wanted out, I could charge out at the end of the stopper. I think doing that in the older shape boat without having the curve on the bottom of it, all that lovely rocker would have been quite a bit harder. Into the eddy. No purling from the front of the boat there. Onto the wave. That feels easier. Much easier. Front of the boat isn't diving. The flat bottom is allowing me to move around quite a bit. I can adjust my trim. I'm not feeling locked in, he says. This is where a bit of that flat bottom excels. So I can now flat spin a whole load easier than I could in our old school boat. It wasn't impossible, because this is a bit easier. Whee! Oh, long boat. Awesome. So good. Okay, so we're back on the canal, paddling up for lap 2. The Freefall LT felt quite quick up here because it's low, it's skinny, it's got no rocker. Well, compared to this, this still feels quick because it's obviously 10 foot long, but it doesn't feel as quick because there's more boat out of the water. But that's, I think, its plus. It's going to be more manoeuvrable. It's going to feel like a short river boat until I want that length, until I get either the front of the boat engaged, dropping off something, or the back of the boat engaged as the front picks up. It's still travelling really well. So, another thing that's noticeable is the weight of this boat. This boat is significantly heavier, but that's a lot of the fittings that are in it, and these fittings are what make this boat feel stable, connected to it, positive. Every move that I make, there's an outcome. But we'll hop in here and we'll see if this is torpedo into the water or skim across the surface. Here we go, same question as earlier then. Are we going to have wet nose or are we going to skip out of it? I reckon skip out of it. There we are, and we're off. The front of this boat picks up nicely over things. Oh, very nice. Another really noticeable thing is using outside edges to sweep the boat over things is a hell of a lot easier with the amount of rocker. Line adjust, outside edge, line adjust. Much easier. Not impossible in the old school boat, much easier. Second lap, makes an eddy. But straight away, bow over things. Oosh. hopefully we can get all 10 foot of this boat into that heading. Easy! Let's go river right again. Now there's the difference, because I've not had to change my paddling style. So typically the battery ran out yesterday on the GoPro, so I've got to finish the video here, which is okay. That question then, do I need to think about a slightly newer longboat if I was going to add one to the fleet, or can I get away with something a bit older? And I've got to be honest, I had lots of fun paddling that Freefall. It's a lovely boat, it's very, very quick, far more manoeuvrable than I thought it was going to be. However, if I was to go a little bit harder in that boat, I would be quite worried. I'd be quite worried because the cockpit's quite low and quite narrow, so getting in and out might be quite tricky. And the grab handles, those iconic grab handles at the front there with the crisscross just being tape, I might be worried that if it got stuck and needed dragging out, they might come out of the boat. The Scorch X, on the other hand, basically the opposite. So the cockpit's nice and big, I can get in and out of it safely, comfortably. It's got those nice grab handles on it that we know are fairly solid, and it paddles like a 9-foot riverboat. With all that rocker, it will go over things rather than through them. However, the downside there would be the cost. So the cost of one of these new is going to be the same as your riverboat, whereas something with a bit of vintage to it is going to be cheaper. You pick these up, you know, Facebook Marketplace, that sort of thing, get yourself a bit of a bargain and you've got a longboat. So if you weren't going to take it on something steep, something hard, adding one of these of a certain vintage could increase the fleet. Anyway, with all that in mind, hopefully that gives enough info. Next video I'm probably going to get in the topo that they've got here, but for the meantime I'm off to buy biscuits because I've just finished them all. See you later.